So, hi, what is your name and how old are you?
Hello, my name is Abdi, and I just turned 29 years old.
And which city and which neighborhood in Egypt are you from?
I'm from Cairo, from Heliopolis neighborhood.
And where have you lived both inside and outside of your home country? I'm talking about neighborhoods here.
Well, I've been living in Vancouver, in East Vancouver neighborhood, and I also lived in Beijing for like a short period of time. Definitely cannot remember the name of the neighborhood.
How do you describe yourself to others? Here, I'm seeking your pronouns, your profession, social standing, and class.
Yeah, I go by he, him. Social standing and class, you said, right? Yeah, I would definitely say upper middle class Egyptian. um I my profession, it's a mix. I've been working in academia for a little bit. I'm also a communication specialist in an NGO, so I do a bit of that and a bit of that.
And here I want to ask a little bit about your educational background. Where did you complete your education? Which universities and in which fields?
I finished my undergrad in Egypt in the field of mass communication. Like I was specialized in advertising, and I did it in the Canadian International College in Cairo. And I did my master's degree was a double degree in global communication. So I did the first degree in Simon Fraser University in global communication, and the second one also in global communication, but in Communication University of China in Beijing.
How did you decide on each of these universities or workplaces that you've attended? What were the biggest factors at each stage?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think with my undergrad was more random. It's more of like, oh, actually, undergrad and like my graduate school, they were both like more of like recommendations from people. With my undergrad, it was recommended to me, I guess, by someone I knew. And also with my graduate school, the program that I was in, it was recommended by a friend who actually did the same program, and I applied and followed her path, basically.
I love it. Sense of community. And what is your ideal occupation?
Ooh, my ideal occupation is to never work again. That is what I would
I'm
love
there
to
with
do.
you.
I like ideally I would love to be a researcher in whatever I would want to research, and just like to be able to, yeah, take research projects in different fields.
And when did you leave your homeland?
I left in late 2018 in September.
Why do you think you relocated to Canada?
Definitely choosing Canada um wasn't on purpose. It was more of like I got accepted in this school, so I was like, okay, now I guess I'm gonna move to Canada. And I didn't really decide that I was gonna live in Canada. I just thought like I'm gonna do this experience of like studying, and see how I feel about Canada. And I was also going to Beijing after. I wasn't planning to move to Beijing, but I was like, it's gonna be also an experience, and see how I feel. I By then I would have been living in, or I would have lived in three countries. But after a year in Canada, I decided that I feel good about things around me, the society I'm in, the people I got to know, and the lifestyle that I was having in Canada. And that made me feel like, oh, I want to like stay here more.
And why Vancouver?
Yeah, it's a good question. I got asked by a lot of the people I got to know here that, and I always like my friend came here and she said it's a nice city, so I came here, and I'm so glad that she did that, because otherwise I would have been in a colder place. And Vancouver is super awesome with the weather in Canada.
I know it can be pretty harsh, and
Yeah,
Vancouver is just so beautiful.
West Coast. Yeah.
And what was your initial impression of Vancouver once you settled in? What was settling like in this new city?
My initial impression was definitely Vancouver is a beautiful city, but it's also a very rainy city. I was like experiencing rain for like I experienced rain in Cairo, but it's never nothing like anything here. My initial impression was, yeah, it was so rainy. I did not have the proper clothing for that, and I was staying in a, yeah, in a different part of town where I felt like oh, it's more quiet, it's darker. But at the same time, another impression was just like, yeah, everything is nice, everything's clean, everything is on time. Everything was easy to do. Like I didn't need much help from people and to like get around and to know where I should go. Things seemed very, yeah, very straightforward. Everything was straightforward.
And it brings me to my next question. What kind of struggles or challenges did you face while settling in or following your arrival?
Yeah, I think the main challenge was like a personal challenge of like being away from everyone. And I think that's everyone feels the same way. You're away from everyone, you know, suddenly you're in a new place and you just got a SIM card that nobody's gonna call your number because nobody has your number. So when that sinks in, that's like the main challenge. It's like, how do you adapt to being alone for the first time? And I think before that trip, for the first trip here, I was never alone. Like I thought I would. I'm alone sometimes in Egypt. Sometimes I'm like sitting by myself in the coffee shop and like doing my thing. But I was never really alone because everyone around me seemed familiar, or like I got to know some people around me a little bit. But the main challenge in here coming here was like, wow, for the first time I'm actually by myself, and that means me thinking about a lot of stuff that you never had to think about before, just because you never got to be with yourself. So that was definitely a challenge at first. It's like learning how to make friends again, learning how to sit with yourself, learning how to study here, because even definitely studying is different than how it is in Egypt. I remember coming back from my first two classes, I like just sat on the couch and I was like about to cry. I was like, oh my God, like I'm not gonna make it here. This is super hard. Um, but looking back, these were really, really important experiences for me to actually be able to understand what I was going through afterward.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
I so appreciate you being this, honest about your feelings. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And were there any associations or organizations or institutions that helped you settle in Canada?
Yeah, that's a good question because I work in an NGO right now that is a settlement organization, and they provide a lot of services that I was like, man, I wish I knew about this stuff before like when I first moved here. But honestly, I would say my friends I made in school who became really close friends to me right now were doing the same services these organizations are currently giving actually to people. So I was lucky, and I think this is something a lot of students have, like a luxury of like friendships and like a small community. And my friends who are from Canada, specifically those who are from Vancouver, made my life much easier. They helped me with everything. And that even just adjusting to the lifestyle, even this very small stuff that gave me the same services settlement organizations are currently giving.
Yeah, it's so interesting because a lot of people don't know about these institutions when they first arrive.
Yeah,
I wish they were more, public and visible.
I know. Like that's part of my job right now as a communication specialist to actually like promote our stuff. But it's harder in an NGO world.
Yeah. And do you have family in Egypt?
Yes, all my family lives in Egypt.
And how do you get your news or information about Egypt and why?
Yeah, so that's a good question where I'm like, I'm always following stuff on, online, on Facebook, on like some online news websites, on Twitter, of course. Um, and it's interesting because I find myself not following any news in Canada, which is it's not good or bad. But I tend to more follow stuff from Egypt, and a good reason is also like a good way for me to follow stuff is through family and friends. And it's still very interesting to me when I ask my friends about Egypt, and like I get very different views about how they feel about things happening and what do they see. And I would say, yeah, it's a mix of like online and like friends and family telling me about stuff happening.
And what do you keep of Egypt? Do you still know the language? Any special customs, foods, manners, anything like that?
What do you exactly keep? Like I definitely I speak Arabic. It's my first language. I keep that. I keep my Egyptian Che. I like have packs of it, and like if I'm running low, so I'm getting worried. I have to go back at some point to get more. Like my mom actually sent me that. Um, I when it comes to like I think when it comes to traditions or like celebrations, I found myself making my own types of celebrations because like it's very different here to celebrate something like Ramadan when not a lot of people around you are doing it, or like celebrate Eid when not a lot of people are doing it. And I definitely, when I first came here, I didn't really do anything special or didn't try to do anything special just because like didn't feel like it's the right spirit. But I feel like now that I'm a bit more settled, I feel like oh, I'm gonna make my own types of my own Eid because like it's a time to celebrate, but I'm gonna celebrate it differently. Um, but it's yeah, it's definitely interesting. I'm trying to think of other stuff that I have even here. I do have like a blue eye, you know, the blue eye thing that you put on the door when you move somewhere new, and like I have
Yes.
that because like you know you got to protect yourself. My friend, even my Egyptian friend, my Egyptian best friend who lives in Spain, he sent me one as a gift. It was really nice. Yeah, it's like these small stuff. Um, what else do I have? Yeah, it's just like I think the main things would be the share. It's like essential for me every day. And what I'm trying to understand more or to think about more is how do I make my own small Egyptian stuff here.
And are there any Egyptian restaurants slash, I don't know, supermarkets that offer Egyptian products in Vancouver?
No, I think there are. Yeah, there's like a Lebanese supermarket that's close by that I get. That this is where I guess some Egyptian products and or some Middle Eastern products in general. There's like a really a wonderful lady that like makes Egyptian foods from time to time. It's she's not consistent, but like whenever I have the chance, I order food from her. Um, I do want to like try and cook more Egyptian food, but the thing is like I got to learn how to cook when I came here, just like a lot of spoiled Egyptian men who only have to feed themselves when they're starving, and they have no other way to eat. So I started learning, and it just like blew my mind like how I never cooked before. But I learned like through recipes to make first kind of like Canadian or Western food because or like even Thai or Mexican food just because like that's the you got more of the ingredients around, so you do that. But I want to like start learning how to make Egyptian food. I think like they have this part where like "Ah, it's never gonna be like grandma's, so like why bother?" So you just like wait till you go home to eat it.
Oh man, I know the feel,
Yeah,
but you gotta try. I don't know, maybe one day yours will be even better than grandma's. Who knows?
yeah. Who knows? Just let's not just mention that in front of her ever.
Never. My lips are sealed. And what does Egypt mean to you? Have your feelings changed for Egypt over time?
Ooh, okay. Whoa, that's hard. That's so hard to answer because it definitely changes from time to time. I was listening to a podcast by a writer, Egyptian writer, who was talking about Cairo specifically, and he was saying how when he thinks about Cairo, it's like he's thinking about a place that doesn't exist anymore, exists for him, but it's not the same. And that's how I feel about Egypt a lot of times, where like the stuff that I used to do changed as far as I understand the people who I used to hang out with like either left or like doing their own thing. So I feel like I'm always thinking about a place that does not exist anymore in that sense. And I still consider Egypt like the place where I did everything important in my life. But I'm also trying to understand more my relation to Egypt in that sense when I'm doing a lot more different stuff here in Canada and also really really important stuff for myself. So I think slowly Egypt is becoming this place where I have my family and friends and some memories, right? But it's not a place where I look back at and be like, oh, I think I want to like have have my life there again in that sense.
And can you describe the changes you have endured while living in Canada, living outside of Egypt? These can be in your character, surroundings, social and political life, cultural and religious practices.
Oh, and cooking too. Like I know I cook, but like it's like these small stuff. Like they all are kind of connected in a way. Even starting just from cooking my own meal, that like changed my views about my relation to food, my relation to my inherent patriarchy that I never thought about before, but I have to think about more now when I'm like, who cooked my meals before? It was all like my mom or like my grandma's helper or my grandma. I never thought about that before. Who cleaned this pot before? Because now I have my own place and it's this part is always dirty because I never thought about cleaning it before. So that makes me like rethink about stuff about myself and about my life and my lifestyle. Um, um, Another change would definitely, yeah. There's so many changes. Like one change would be what I how I spend my oh, sorry, still on the food thing is like I became a vegetarian, and that also was something I would make fun of. But now it is something that's important to me, and I only thought about doing it because I got exposed to people doing it. And that encouraged me to try it. And by trying, I understood it more. And after understanding it, I decided that I would want it to be part of my lifestyle. Of course, when I go to Egypt, that's my only rule. I'm not a vegetarian anymore because I want to eat all the shawarma. But here I am because also people around me are vegetarian, and that encouraged me. And I've noticed that on my I wouldn't say health, but like it just feels better when I consume when I'm only consuming a vegetarian diet. So and that like connects with a lot of other stuff. You see other people doing things that you never really thought you should be doing, especially in the pandemic. Like you're staying home more, and I started thinking about think like trying new stuff for the first time, like planting and knitting and like stuff that I was like didn't even think about before. But it also all comes back from like this one time I was hanging out with my friends in school here in Canada, and they asked everyone was like talking about their hobbies and like, what's your hobby? What's your hobby? And came to like it was my turn, and I was like, my hobby is like watching football or like soccer. They were like, do you play? And I'm like, no, I stopped playing, but I love watching it. And they're like, that's not a hobby. Like, what's your hobby? And I'm like, oh man, I don't have a hobby. It's just like they all had like not cool stuff, but they just had their own thing. I didn't have actually my thing that's away at least from this screen and computers. Um, and this like made me think like, oh, okay, if I want a hobby, what am I interested in? And I found a lot of stuff that I could be interested in, or I might not like at all. But it's just knowing what's available was so important to me, and it changed a lot of my daily routines. I started thinking more about, for example, like my clothing style definitely changed because of not just because of living here, but because of having the luxury to think about my clothing style and what do I want and what do I want to wear and how much do I want to spend, and how much you're affected by people and what they do around you. That also comes to hanging out with your where you hang out with your friends and what do you do. I never thought about parks before I came here, and it was so sad. I'm like, wow, it's like I so enjoy just sitting in the park, and because we don't have parks in Egypt, or we like have one major park, and like you can't find people to go to the park with because nobody wants to hang out in the park. Everyone wants to hang out in a cafe and make the same order and like enjoy your time that way. And I understand that it just like doesn't fit me anymore. And it was interesting to know that you never knew that it doesn't fit you until you started doing something else. And I think these are small changes that happen to you because you are in a different community with a different lifestyle, and you wanna, and it helps you understand a lot about yourself. So just like sitting in the park made me realize that I want to get back to reading more. I'm reading more because I sit more in the park, and now reading is more of a part of my lifestyle because I like to do it before I sleep. I like to do it when I wake up, and it's like all these small stuff, they add up, and I think they change a lot about what do you do every day. um, Religiously, I wouldn't say a lot have changed from how I was in Egypt, but I would say, it's really nice in the Canadian context, or the context of Vancouver, is being able to express yourself religiously the way you want. Maybe that's definitely my own experience. I'm sure for other um, Arab Muslims or Muslims in general, it might be different. My experience was great because I can express myself the way I want, and that is definitely something I can do in Egypt. Yeah, I don't know if that's an answer to your question. It's just like a lot of things that I thought about suddenly.
It was fantastic. First of all, I would beg to differ. Watching football is definitely a hobby.
I think so too.
We're Middle Easterners, we can't help it.
A lot of time.
And second, I so appreciate how aware you are of your life and how you're thinking about this whole process of your life changing and your new lifestyle and your new hobbies. It's incredible. Not many people are this aware, you know.
I know. I think it's. I would definitely. I'm grateful for my friends who also migrated to other countries, and I get to talk to, and I get to talk about these small changes. And sometimes our conversations will go bigger to like identities and like all that, and that helps a lot to like understand what is our position as Egyptians living abroad, because we're not the like I'm sure the project interviews, and I think there were like interviews that I didn't really get to listen to, but I think they were talking about like Egyptian Canadians and second generation Egyptian Canadians, and that's so interesting to me because they come from a very different position than me, and how they feel about Egypt. While I'm like, I'm always going to be Egyptian. I cannot not be Egyptian even if I don't want to, but I'm also an Egyptian who's living abroad, and that has its own meanings as well. So yeah, it's all a process that never ends.
Being a diasporic subject is an endless discovery,
Yeah,
honestly.
for sure.
And do you know or are in contact with others who have migrated around the same time that you left Egypt?
Yes, a lot.
And how would you describe your social network, ethnicity-wise, occupation, age?
So my social networks mainly come from university, like from my time in school. Um, these are, yeah, most of my like strong friendships come from university at the time. I'm so grateful that I had that. Um, yeah, and like I feel this is a question actually I do ask my friends or the people I talk to about that. Like, what's your community and like how do you make one? And it's an interesting question where like I do have uh, good friends, but at the same time, my life in Cairo, where you had a number of different circles that you can hang out with. I think it's definitely more limited here. I definitely see it as a more challenging thing to create social networks here. And I have no idea if it's because of like the nature of Canada or if it's because you're migrating to a totally different place at the age of 29 as myself, and you're like, it's harder to make friends when you're older compared to like, my friends in Egypt, they're all friends I made like also in like my undergrad, and like we were younger and like we're still friends and we lived closer. So it's like there's a lot of different aspects, and people in Egypt migrate less or like move less around Egypt. We hear people in Canada move a lot for jobs. I could be moving for jobs. Um, so I think, yeah, my main social networks come from school. I'm friends of friends for sure. I would definitely say, and that's something, yeah, I told my friends that, and a lot of them have the same thing where like you don't have the same types of friendships in Egypt where you text someone and be like, "Do you want to hang out right now?" And people will be like, "Yeah, let's just hang out quickly right now, or go do something quickly." I feel like here, the way the society is, the way the structure of everything, the way how everyone is busy and trying to make enough money and trying to do the next thing on their list, it makes it so hard to like have these very more casual types of friendships, or like not casual, but like easier hangouts that increase or like makes friendships stronger. Like I totally get it, and I'm part of it now. If I'm like hanging out with a friend, it makes total sense for me to like schedule something for next week. I would never do that in Egypt because that will never happen. It's either like happening the next few days, or like this is so. I just think like this contributes to how friendships and connections are. And then the pandemic definitely happened, and like when you're in school, most of my friends come from school, and after school, if I wanted to make new social groups, I need to be part of different types of activities. But because of the pandemic, that didn't happen. But I'm very aware of this point specifically, and specifically being aware of like not being limited to Egyptian societies, which are not a lot or big in Vancouver. But for example, when I first moved here, my mom would be like, you go to the mosque, or like, look up an Egyptians in Vancouver group and like go hang out with them. And like I have no problem with that, but at the same time, I'm very eager to have the experience of like, having friends from all over the world, and because that changed me a lot, and I want to be part of a diverse group. And just as much as I criticize like white people for not having, the different diverse groups, they only hang out with white people, I want the same for myself too. And I do have Egyptian friends abroad who only hang out with Egyptians, and that is, to me, is fine. It's nothing's wrong with that, but it's like I wish they would have different experiences, because that will change you a lot. So yeah, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. I'm just like saying everything I have in mind. But also, I have a virtual group, which is everyone in Egypt and all of my friends who migrated, who I talk to like consistently. And I think when I first traveled, I really thought about that, where I'm like, I can easily lose these friendships if I'm not very intentional about how and when and how much I speak to them. So with me, with my friends, I make sure like we shouldn't be um, like we should talk consistently all the time and make sure we spend that time. And like some of my friends understand that very well. And at the same time, there are some friendships that I'm going to lose, because even when I was in Egypt, I wasn't talking to them much. So that means that's it. But like for my very, very close friends, I definitely try and maintain that and catch up every now and then, if not consistently, and hold myself responsible for that, because I'm the one who left, and they're still there, they're still living the same life. I'm changed, so I need to make sure that this continues. So it's like I want to maintain a balance between like my virtual social circle in Egypt that I try and maintain virtually, and my Canadian social circle that I care about so much, and I want to like I want to expand, or like I want to have a bigger different social circles, because that's how my life in Egypt was, and that's how I got a lot of help from people I know, because that's how societies work, I guess.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
And who are the people in diaspora that you more closely associate with? Are they people who share the same faith, nationality, regardless of religion, people of the same region that you came from, Middle East and North Africa?
See, I sometimes I'm in the subway and you see someone who looks like Middle Eastern, or like maybe even Egyptian, and you'd be like, man, like I should like like I have this thing with you, like I should like connect, or like say salam alaikum, or like say something and be like, hey, what's up? And sometimes I have this feeling, and sometimes I see someone who looks Egyptian, who looks very familiar or like very similar, who might be, coming from a similar story to me, and I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna like, pretend that I'm not here just in case that person comes and like approach me and be like, hey, what's up? Where are you from? Like that. And I don't understand. Like, I do understand. Yeah, same, right? You want that, but you don't. And like sometimes you want it so much, and sometimes you just don't want it at all. And it makes sense, to be honest, because I want, again, strike that balance. But at the same time, whenever I see someone, if like my Canadian friend knows an Egyptian friend and they're introducing me right now, I would like be a bit cautious, to be honest. Not because that person is bad, but just because I left Egypt for a reason, and this reason was more societal. And my first concern is like, are you the Egyptian that I like hanging out with in Egypt, or are you the Egyptian that I left Egypt because of? So I wouldn't say I know. I wouldn't say I have a certain connection with a certain diaspora. It's more of like I'm open to like just having friends from all over, and I'm open to be like more, yeah, I don't want to limit myself, especially to Arab communities. I do feel that great sense of like, I don't know, just like a very good feeling whenever you're around people who are like you, who are exactly with this very similar background. But then again, when I was in Egypt, I felt different, and I felt like I wasn't part of society, even though I am, even though I was raised the same way, but I just like, I'm different. So it's like, it's so amazing. I have an Egyptian friend here, and we have a very strong connection because we have this similar feelings or a similar background in a way. We're like, in Egypt, we felt like we didn't really belong. We were not part of the society. And then we come here and we're like, we're both very open-minded. Both very flexible. We both have, I wouldn't say like it's not Western values, but more of like less Middle Eastern values. And that helps us connect a lot. And she's like very close to me because of that. And I have to say, like, at the first time, I'm sure she felt the same way. When we first met, you'd have the feelings of like, which type of Egyptian are you? The one I like or the one I don't like? But once we got over that, I'm like, yeah, you're very important in my life. We need each other so much, and like I can talk about stuff with you that I can't talk with others, not because they will never understand, but just because they didn't live through it the same way we lived through it. So I think to answer the question is like, I would love to. I connect a lot with the Egyptian diaspora if they align with my values that do not align with the values in Egypt.
And do you and your family or relatives visit each other either in Egypt or in Canada? And if so, how frequent are those visits?
So I don't have family in Canada. I have my family in Egypt. My family in Egypt never came here. I would love for them to come here one day. I visit Egypt. Would love to keep visiting. Um, I haven't for a long time because of like Canadian border restrictions, whatever. But no, I never had any family members come here.
What occupation will you choose if you were to go back to Egypt permanent?
I don't know. It's like I never thought like I never thought about what I would do. So when I was in Egypt, my first jobs were in advertising, then in communications within the entrepreneurship field, and then advertising again. But yeah, I don't see myself honestly. Like when I think about the work culture, when I think about um, yeah, dealing with all the clients and client the relationships and all that, it's not something that I would like to be part of. Um, yeah, I would have a farm maybe and grow tomatoes. That would be great. That would be easier. But no, I don't know honestly. I wouldn't want to work in Egypt again for now, at least.